real opposed to it because I like that face-to-face, that interaction. I mean, mainly I see it more in the communication school. That's where I see more of the online classes happening. Not so much in business. I don't hear anyone in the business school saying, "Oh, well, I'll take that online." So I think it really depends on the department and the class, yeah, the subject.
Well, speaking of online classes and commuting and all that, what was it? Yahoo recently switched back from their work at home program to create more face-to-face interaction because, face-to-face interaction is critical. I mean, that relationship, the interpersonal skills, because there's a lot of people, going out there to work that have never, really interacted with other people. They don't really have any customer service skills. So I'm a big believer in face-to-face classes.
That's a big beef with myself and my wife have talked about it before on how the social graces of some of the people coming out of colleges, the people that are just getting in the workforce, they have no social graces, man. I mean, they will say the first thing that comes to their mind, and if it's offensive, then so be it. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, hey, your generation needs to work on their social graces, especially in the workplace. It just seems to be lacking.
She's got it good.
She's good. She needs to talk to buddies.
And it's funny we bring that up, but I've interviewed some people in my short time, and I've had some very interesting interviews. I actually had someone checking their Facebook in front of me while they're actually interviewing with me. They're in there interviewing for a position, for a job, and they pulled out their phone and checked their Facebook right in front of me. And I'm like, really? You have time to check your Facebook? It's like, you know what? We're done. Have a nice day.
Did you really end it?
I mean, it's like, think about it. You're here looking for a job, and you can't even dedicate 10, 20 minutes to look at me in the eyes. You barely can create any eye contact. Yeah. It's really interesting seeing how much the social media or the online world has really impacted interpersonal skills.
I think it does depend a lot on the individual per se. For instance, I like you said, I do know some people who wouldn't really care. They think, well, I am who I am and I don't need to change who I am to satisfy anyone. But then there's those who will go the extra mile to really try to impress someone. So I do think it depends a lot on the individual as well. Yeah.
What?
Good point. As he checks his Facebook.
Huh? What? Sorry, I'm being sarcastic here. But anyways, anything else going on out there?
Hey, Final Four. Final Four is done. So we just next weekend's a big weekend.
The highlight of college basketball, but my heart goes out to the young college player. If you didn't see the one of the nastiest accidents or physical, I don't even know what to call it, but the young man's Kevin Ware's leg broke on live television. It was crazy seeing his leg snap the way it did, and it's just terrible. And I understand it's going to be about a year. He might actually be able to play again. So I hope they don't rush his recovery, but I just hope that actually we'll ask Dr. Joe about that too. But it was just crazy seeing that accident. If y'all haven't seen it, they do have it on YouTube. But his leg just literally just snapped in half. And, but I don't know.
I think I want to see that on YouTube.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And on a last note, and maybe hopefully in a better note, do y'all watch the did y'all keep track of the lottery and the Powerball and all that?
No, I didn't.
No, not this week. No.
Well, there was a winner, and the guy was all excited and he won, and then the news covered that he owed some child support. So he made do. He did what's right, and he paid his $30,000 in back due child support.
Well, that's good.
And if I was his ex-wife, I'd be asking for all that Powerball money too. But, oh goodness! But
you should have been a divorce attorney.
No, I couldn't be an attorney. I'd be too mean. So.
Perfect. Right. Hey, that's perfect for an attorney.
No. Well, anyway, so let's get back on track. Anything else? Anything else exciting?
Boy, I tell you, I'm ready to get on with the show and get Dr. Joe on here.
Yeah.
Well, what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick break, and we're coming back right now. We're going to have the world famous Doc Joe. And if you have not ever heard of Doc Joe, trust me, you will not be disappointed to learn about this great man. So you're watching Latino Talk TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. Now we have some very special guests with us, and what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to read some of the history. And I personally grew up watching the doctor on TV on Channel 13, which is ABC, and it's just wonderful. So I'm like a kid in a candy store. So I'm all right. All right, let me get started. So let me introduce to you Dr. Joseph Agris.
Yes.
Okay, and you'll be able to explain all the other stuff. But he is known to friends and patients around the world as Dr. Joe, and he is one of Houston's premier cosmetic, plastic, and reconstructive surgeons. Dr. Joe is a true Renaissance man, a photographer, an author, a world traveler, and a philanthropist. His philanthropy specifically concentrates on children's health problems and education. Dr. Joe was Marvin Zindler's plastic surgeon and has worked with many other well-known celebrities. When not traveling to some remote corner of the globe on a medical mission, Dr. Joe tends to his practice in the Texas Medical Center in Houston. Dr. Joseph Agris has more than 35 years experience in cosmetic and reconstructive surgery, a member of the American Board of Plastic Surgery. Dr. Agris practices in the Texas Medical Center, St. Luke's Hospital, and the Texas Children's Hospital. His clientele consists of both domestic and international patients, and he has had more than 40,000 patient visits. And on that, I present to you Dr. Joseph Agris. Doctor, thank you for being with us today.
It's a pleasure. I'm really, surprised and privileged, and it's really, great to be here and to have a chance to talk about what we do and have done for 35, 40 years in Houston and around the world. And I'd like to introduce, I say my right hand, but Ellie is my right hand and my left hand. And my nurse and looks after everything at the office. And then we have Denise, and she's our assistant and made a recent trip with us to Nicaragua. We were in a very southern city called Chinandega, and I was there 24 years ago at the last year or the ending of the Contra Sandinista War, and ever since we've returned to work on the kids with cleft lip, the cleft palate, war injuries, of course, lots of burns because a lot of cooking is done outside, so we have burn injuries, and then tumors, but we never turn down an adult. I mean, children first, and then if we have the equipment and the time and there's adults with problems, we see them as well. And we've probably operated as a team, and I didn't say me, it's our team, and you're only looking at a few members here. Sometimes we have 20 members in the team, as many as 10,000 children and some adults throughout Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and then more recently, Elia was with me this past year in Peru in a small city called Tumbes, just outside of Lima. And that was a real privilege because the Cardinal and Bishop of Lima in the cathedral in Lima did a beautiful Sunday service just for the group because of the work we do. And that was totally unexpected and a surprise. And after that, we operated in Tumbes, and we've been invited back again for this year. The big problem is we've operated in about 36 countries, and we get invited back every year.
I wonder why.
I mean, it's, I have a practice here in Houston that I have to take care of also in order to afford to go on the trips. Right. In fact, I tell my patients who come for cosmetic surgery, they get their face or their eyes or a breast surgery or a liposuction, and I don't. When you do this, you're not just paying me. A portion of this money is always going back to the children. First, right here in Houston. We never refuse any teacher who calls or sends us a letter, any church, any synagogue, any mosque, any place, any school, that they say, we have a child, they can't afford it, this is the problem, and they send them. Now, some of those problems are not always related to plastic surgery. But I have a lot of doctor friends here, and we always find someone to take care of that child. So nobody goes without, and that's what Marvin always taught me, Mr. Zindler, when I worked with him for 30 years. And he used to yell, "It's hell to be poor." And it's true. That, and it's not always that. I mean, the services and the facilities are here this is the best medical center in the world. It's the largest in the world, and the doctors are really very giving at the medical center here. But the question is, a lot of people don't know where to go with the problem. And that's one of the things we probably spend 30% of our time doing, is referring or joining different groups of doctors together, because sometimes it isn't one specialty that does the procedure. You might need someone in neurosurgery, in ear, nose, and throat, otolaryngology, and plastic, all working together for something that's related to the eye, the face, and the brain, all on the one child. So I try to bring this team together, and that's the same thing when we travel. We don't just travel with plastic and reconstructive. We often have general surgeons, neurosurgeons, plastic surgeons, obstetrics and gynecology, which is very much appreciated in the third world countries, and general medicine, pediatrics, anesthesia. And we have to bring this group together to take care of the kids as we go from country to country.
Well, I tell you, Dr. Joe, first, you know, when I heard that you were going to be a guest here, I mean, I just had to, guys, this is a coup. This is a coup that we got Dr. Joe on the show today. And believe me, sir, I mean, as far as being a servant leader, I mean, I also work with the National Hispanic Professional Organization, their Leadership Institute, and it's dedicated to servant leadership. And I mean, my goodness, I mean, when you were introduced, I wanted to stand up and give him a standing ovation, you know. But Dr. Joe, when did you feel this calling to give back to the community? How long have you been doing that?
About 30 of the 35 years I've been here, we've been giving back. And then after Mr. Zindler and I talked, I said, you know, we need a foundation. So we established the Agri Zindler Children's Foundation, which we just call the Children's Fund. And it's very similar to other funds like Doctors Without Borders, our international branch, you know, with our international work. And then our work that we do here at home is very similar to organizations such as Operation Smile. And we have a branch called Smiles Forever, which deals with the cleft lip and palate, and websites that go along with the Agri Zindler Children's Foundation and our Smiles Forever program. Elliot could tell us more about it.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we're starting a website already with the Agri Zindler Children's Foundations, Smiles Forever, Smiles Gone Wild, and People Helping People.
I like the last one. Say it again. Smiles Gone Wild. I like that.
You would. But you know, what most people don't realize is we don't just take care of a child and do a surgery. It's free. That's nice. Okay, but this child didn't want to go to school. And when he did go to school, he was picked on by the other kids. And whether it's here or Nicaragua or Peru or Afghanistan, it doesn't make any difference. Kids are mean to other children who don't look the same, don't act the same, and if they have a cleft, they can't talk properly, and food drips from out of their mouth, or they got some kind of tumor, or they've been burned and they have a deformity. And, you know, as adults, we can appreciate the problem, and, you know, we try to do something or look on it, but the kids are very mean.
Yeah.
So one, when you take care of the kid, you've not only done the surgery, but you've made him and her a productive citizen again. And also you've brought the family back. So the first thing is the child gets operated on. Second thing is the family becomes cohesive again, because they're even afraid of the child with the deformity or how to handle it or deal with it. The next thing is the local family, cousins, aunts, uncles, they all of a sudden, they wouldn't even kiss the baby. Now, hey, they hold the baby, they want to participate with the baby. So you've got the local family or the initial family, and then the distant family. And then the third thing you have is the entire neighborhood. All the friends, all the associates, those at church, those at school. All of a sudden they all blend in, and you've brought together an entire community. The child's fixed, the family's fixed, and the community's fixed. And people don't appreciate the other aspects of doing reconstructive surgery, how it's looked upon by others in that manner. So it's not just fix a child, it's fix all of these areas and bring a community back together and get this child educated and going in the right path rather than being ostracized and going in the wrong path. And then you've helped society and your city and your town and your village and the country itself. I mean, you've got a productive person now coming out rather than someone who might pick up a gun and then end up in prison, and someone you're supporting for the rest of their life rather than someone who's becoming a productive individual. So reconstructive surgery has the physical part, but the psychological for the individual, but the whole family and the community and the school, and those relationships are not, I think, always appreciated. They go, oh, well, you repaired it. Boy, that looks good. Well, yeah, I'm glad to be proud that I did a good job and it looks good, but that's not what we, what we see. I mean, for 11 years, Marvin and I every year went to Russia, and we helped establish a hospital up in the northern part in the Ural Mountains, and that was exciting on the Trans-Siberian Railroad going up there.
That was quick. Hold on. Go ahead.
And while we were up there, we had this girl that was burned. And one of the typical things, and it's worldwide, people put honey on burns, and it actually is pretty good. It's sterile, it's soothing, and it's antibacterial. But the mistake they make worldwide is, let's say you got a burn on your arms and the chest, then they wrap you up like this, like you're a mummy. Well, if this is a burned area and your chest is a burned area, they grow together if you wrap them up. The idea is you want them out, not in. And so we have people with what we call contractures. And this young lady came, she was preteen, and she was like this. She couldn't pick her head up. She could eat like this. She wouldn't go to school. So we put skin grafts here on our first trip, and then she had her hands. Next one, we released her elbows, and then finally her neck. And then 24 years later, I get a letter from her from Russia. She scored, in Russia, the only way you get through your education is at each level of your education, take an exam. You fail the exam, that's it. You don't go any further. She went all the way through to the university. She's an engineer. She met a very nice young man. She's married, and she sent me her photo. And I mean, what more can you ask for? And to see how something like that progresses. And I'm just picking one, but we got books full, scrapbooks, thousands of letters about how these kids have grown up, and it has changed their family life, their brothers and sisters, their parents, the community, and then self-esteem. And then they call us up and say, when you come again, we want to work with you. We'll translate, we'll help, and what can we do to give back? And that's really something that's really,
Doc.
And you have a caller on the line. We can take the call. Caller, you're on the air. Are you there? Ben, how are you?
Oh, hang up on this guy.
We have Dr.
I had to
Agnes
call
here.
in to talk to Dr. Joe. I'm very impressed by all that he's done. And I also want to tell Javier, the online courses that you used to take are nothing like today.
I know that much.
But no, Dr. Joe, it's very impressive. I don't know how you all got involved in all this process and going across to South America and other countries that you've gone to, but I'll tell you what, anybody that does that has a huge heart. And I thank you from the community for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Doc, Ben's right
for
on.
calling in.
It starts with that giving heart. How many other doctors are involved in your foundation and in your work?
Overall, there's probably 35 doctors, but then I don't want to forget that for every doctor we have a nurse and a medical assistant and technician, and even down to the people. A lot of medicine today involves electronics, and we have electric cauteries and bovies and so on. If something goes wrong with one of those pieces of equipment, we need someone there who can fix it. So everyone from the, it's not myself alone. It's everyone who does the organizing, who keeps the records, who does the photos. It's a big group, and yes, we travel as small as 8 people can do the job and do it well. And if we're in a small town like we were in Shenandoah, the 8 of us, we did like 100 surgeries and in a week, and took care of all the children and the follow-ups, and everything went fine. On the other hand, following Contra Sandinista during the war with all the problems that were going on, we had a team of about 25. And after Vietnam, Mr. Zindler and I were in the second public aircraft, non-military aircraft, to set down there.
Wow.
And begin work. And we get political. I try not to, but sometimes it happens. And after we operated there, we got invited to the president's office and visit. And then Marvin, in his typical fashion, said, you know, there are a lot of American soldiers that had mixed relations with the Vietnamese, and there's probably 10 or 15,000 children as the result, and you're not releasing them to allow any of them to return to the States, yet they're being ostracized here in Vietnam. And he says, well, what do you want to do about it? So Marvin said, give me a couple of them. And he said, you come tomorrow. I'm going to give you a boy and a girl. And with that, I'm going to give you a promise that anyone who wants to make a claim on a child that resulted from the American troops being here, you can take them home. And that was after all these years of him saying, no, they're not going anyplace. We're not letting them out and anything. And the 2 children Marvin brought back, he helped raise them here. And one's doctor, and the boy served in the U.S. military since then. And they're both educated, and they both have families here. And they were the first 2 to be released from Vietnam. And he made headlines all around the country, you know, after all the work that was being done politically, behind the scenes, with ambassador and everything else. No one was getting any place with this problem.
And Marvin.
And Marvin, and we showed up and we did the surgeries, and afterwards, you know, that's one of the things that's kind of neat. If we go to a country enough times and do what runs into thousands of surgeries, sooner or later you get invited to meet with the ambassador, and then it may go up to the vice president or the secretary of health, and then from there even to the president. And or in these other countries, to the prince or the king of Saudi Arabia, who was my patient the past. And when that happens, then you can make other demands from a social change. I'm not in this, we don't talk about military, we don't go into religion. Social change that's good for everyone, here in this country as well as over there. And we, as a group, try to emphasize these things, or hopefully get those changes to occur, other than just the medical. And you know, our last trips into Pakistan along the Afghan border, we've had some very exciting experiences. Over there, they call me the crazy Texan. I wear this outfit with a big Texas hat and a big Stetson, and I always bring, I fill one suitcase with about 20 Stetsons, and I pass them out to the chief of the hospital and everything, and then I get some small ones and put them on all for the kids, you know. And
wow.
Every time I show up, they come to meet me at the plane. They all bring their Stetsons. And
speaking of that, I think we have some of the picture books. You can...
Oh yeah, it's some of the pictures here. Do you want to show these?
Oh, please, go ahead.
I had one question for you. About how many surgeries do you do per trip?
It varies. The last trip into Nicaragua, we were only there 10 days, and we were able to do a little over 100 cases. Wow. The trip before that, I was in Pakistan, and we had over 550 patients. And the trip before that was about 300 patients. And some of it's relative to the size of the team, and also how many local doctors we can train and work with. This is an educational trip as well. Usually we'll do 2- and 3-day seminars, And the doctors there are usually quite good, often trained either in the U.S. or Europe, but they lack the equipment that we bring in the supplies. And that makes the whole difference for them. And of course, we leave that as a donation.
Yeah.
And that lets them carry on the work that we're doing or the procedures that we taught them. And some of the doctors promise, you know, there's one doctor in particular who says, I'm going to give you 1 day a week out of my practice that I'm going to take care of like you do. Somebody here in my country and do the work as long as we still have equipment.
So walk us through some of these pictures, Doctor, and tell us the story behind
This
it.
is a cleft lip child, and in the U.S. We see a child about once in every 2,000 births. But in the third world countries, we see a child with a cleft in 1 in 4 to 1 in 600 births. And that's because of several things. One, the prenatal care, the dietary problems, and two, the intermarriage that occurs. You know, if you're in a small town and all you have is a bicycle or a donkey, you don't really go too far.
So inner
relationship result in more congenital problems. And so there's a higher incidence. The other thing is, a lot of the doctors have never been taught to do these procedures, and since they're not life-threatening, it's a disability, but it's not life-threatening, it gets put off so that the emergencies are taken care of first and the war injuries are taken care of, and then the number of children with this problem just increases from year to year because they're not being treated. So we see a lot of this. The other thing is, and when you start going to the third world, you have outdoor cooking fires or indoor cooking fires or kerosene stoves. They explode. Outside cooking fires, someone throws the football, the other kid runs, he's looking at the football, right smack into the fire, and all of a sudden, he's on fire. That's, you know, what happens in a world that most Americans don't know anything about.
And most of the children don't get any service or any medical attention until they're later on in life, right?
Until later on in life, right. And one of the things is, a lot of these countries, they say, well, we have a free medical care system. Well, you do and you don't. You have a free medical care system, except that those that might have a few extra dollars that can pay the doctor up front and say, take me in first or take me in now.
They get special treatment, so.
They're getting special treatment, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's free, but it's not free.
So, you know, you kind of bring this up while they're flipping through the pictures. We had discussed this before the show started, you know, and you're just getting, there's a lot of, what's the right word? Misunderstanding is the right, I think, about what Obamacare is right now and how it's going to impact currently. And I'd like to have a doctor's point of view on what Obamacare is right now.
Right now, it's really just the beginning. It's getting instituted. I don't think the doctors or on the other side, those who sponsor the insurance companies here know which way or where it's going. And, you know, the third parties, you know, the hospitals, I don't think we have any idea of how it's going to go. It's something that's in its earliest stages. In many areas throughout the country, it has not even been implemented. And what portions or what area, Obamacare is several thousand pages of documents, and what they're going to do first or how it's going to be implemented and what can be expected is an unknown. It's just an unknown right now. And where it'll go, I have no idea. I would always wish for the best, but I don't know.
No, and I'm glad you say that, because there's so much information out there that, you know, especially from certain companies. I'm not saying one company or the other is, but there are people getting pushed to take action when in reality we don't really know what's going to happen.
Right, especially if you're buying insurance at this time. I couldn't possibly tell you what you should do or where you should go, and I don't know how much even someone who's experienced in the insurance field could. Because, as I said, it's really not been implemented yet.
Wow. Well, I am just, I think we need to take a little quick break, and we're going to regroup, and then we're going to come back and talk about your book.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I
And,
got sitting on my lap, but I forgot. You got me so excited with
No,
everything
the
else.
stories. I mean, I'm just like I think all of us are now. We're just sitting here listening, right? And we have to have Denise also speaking a little bit because you haven't said anything. You've just been
Well,
listening too.
I've been in administration 27 years, and I am hooked up with this great team with Dr. Agris and Elia. Just had a wonderful trip, and I'm so glad that Dr. Agris allowed me to go. I am not a medical staff, but I am administrator. So I know how to get in there and handle administration.
You know how to get it done.
I know how to get it done.
That's right.
With Ella on my side.
That's
Yes,
good.
I can get it done. So I'm on the team and I'm ready to go. And Dr. Agris knows that. Ella knows that.
That's awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're watching Latino Talk TV, and please stay tuned.
Great.
You're still watching Latino Talk TV, and if you're